It's the return of Fan Fiction Friday. We're going to react to some of your Mariners mock trades coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, May 31st, 2024. This is Titan Gonzalez and Colby Patnode for the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's show, we're bringing back Fan Fiction Friday. It's the show where you submit your Mariners trade ideas, and we give you our thoughts on them and grade them on the 20-80 scale, 20 being the worst, 80 being the best, of course. This is going to be our show pretty much every Friday from now until the trade deadline, so a lot of you will have the opportunity to have your trade idea heard. But before we get into this week's batch, shout out to our title sponsor today, FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's LOCKDON to get yourself started. And if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, check out our Patreon. The link is in the description, and you can sign up for a free 7-day trial. So we're going to kick off Fan Fiction Friday here with Garrett, who has a deal with the Blue Jays. Bo Bichette and Jimmy Garcia for Jorge Polanco, Cole Young, and Logan Evans. And Garrett adds, Jays get their shortstop of the future, who is likely ready at some point next season, and a pitching prospect. Mariners get middle of the order bat and bullpen help. Polanco offsets some of the money. I think you're one piece off here from the Mariners.
Yeah. It's interesting. One thing we have to factor in, Bichette's hitting right now, so the idea that you're going to buy low on him is out the window. Not that that ever really existed. You don't really ever buy low on a player. But yeah, so Young is a good start, I think. Logan Evans is certainly an interesting piece that a team like the Blue Jays, who have some older, starting pitching, might be looking at, is like, hey, that's a guy that we can put into our rotation as soon as next year. So I do think that the inclusion of a couple of pieces who should be able to play for them next year at some point is going to be appealing to the Blue Jays. But I think you're one more pretty decent piece off for this, particularly if you're getting Garcia as well. So it's not terrible, and Polanco offsetting some of the money is fine. I wonder if maybe this is a situation where Ty Locklear makes some sense, because if they're going to trade Bichette, they might also trade Vlad. And Locklear is a guy who, in theory, could help them this year, or at least you can get him a cup of coffee this year and, decide what you want to do at first base after that. So it's pretty good. I think it's a good start. I don't think it's all the way there. So I'm going to go like 40, 45, somewhere in that range.
We've talked about this on the show as recent as a couple weeks ago. With this Blue Jays regime, you might have to force their hand here. They might just be willing to go down with the ship and go into Bo and Vlad's last year of their contracts next year and just try to make it work before they hit free agency. So you got to force their hand. This is a good start. I just don't think it's all the way there to doing that. So I'll go 45 to a 50 on this. Brett has a deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and this is going to be a fan favorite because it not just brings in Christian Walker, but also, of course, Paul Sewald. He has the Mariners sending the Diamondbacks Tyler Locklear, Michael Morales, and Taylor Dollard, and adds, might be an overpay for 2 rentals, but you fill a couple needs, and Arizona gets guys that should be MLB ready in the next year for them. Colby, your thoughts?
I think trading Locklear for a rental is in general a bad idea. Now you're getting 2 here, and they both would fill a pretty, good sized role, but I think this is probably a little bit of an overpay. By the way, Morales is doing some nice things down in the minors. It does look like he's finally taken that next step. And then Dollard, does he have any value? Like, we don't know. We haven't seen the guy pitch in a year and a half. So
sure.
It's a little tough to assign any value to him. So I think, as much as I love Paul, as much as I really like Christian Walker, I think Locklear is a bit too much. Like, if they want to talk like Ty Pete, or they want to talk about Aiden Smith, somebody who's a few years away, then I think that makes more sense as a headliner. But it's if I saw this trade come down, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't love it. I think I don't think it's that far off though from what the Diamondbacks would want if they were going to give up both of those guys in one trade instead of trading them separately. And of course, we're assuming, as we are with all these trades, that the teams that they're with, they're willing sellers, right? Like they're going to be open to selling. So if you're out there like, oh, the Diamondbacks aren't going to be sellers, well, A, they might be, but B, we're going to assume they are for all of these trades. So I don't know, 45, maybe a 40. Like it feels a little bit too much, but it's you're getting two really good pieces that definitely help your ball club this year.
I would do this. I have no issue trading Tyler Locklear in this deal. I really don't. One, I'm just not that high on Tyler Locklear, as maybe I guess you are. And two, I don't really care how close Locklear is. That doesn't factor into this at all for me. Christian Walker helps me now. Christian Walker might help me make a deep run in the postseason.
I wonder if you could actually like put Ty France in this deal instead of like Michael Morales, and if that might actually carry a little bit of more weight than Morales, because France is just immediately replaces Walker, and then the Diamondbacks get him for another year if they want him. So I wonder if this is like a way to get Ty France in there. And also you do have to think about some of the salary stuff with these two guys who are both making, ARB6 or ARB3 numbers. So I think, if you throw France in there too, then that probably makes the money like tenable, which you guys don't have to worry about the whole like money part of things, but it is something that we're going to think about because unfortunately we probably have to. So yeah. Like I said, I would be upset. It just feels like a slight overpay to me, but
I'm much higher on this deal than you are. I'm going 60 on this.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, we're going to grade some more of your trades here in just a moment, but first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is once again brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's LOCKEDON, and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. The M's kick off a 3-game set against the Angels tonight. You can catch all the action on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. Let's get back into your trade ideas here on Fan Fiction Friday. We got a trade from Alex. It's one with the Tigers. Kerry Carpenter, who we know is someone the Mariners have liked in the past, for Ty Pete, Michael Arroyo, Aiden Smith, and Michael Morales. Hefty package. What do you think about this deal, Colby?
First of all, kudos to you for getting your Glenn Close on. If you understand that reference, put it in the comments. Second, I think this deal lacks a headliner. And because Carpenter has, I think, 4.5 years of club control left, it's going to cost one of your top, 2 or 3. It probably cost Colt Emerson to get the conversation started. So I like Kerry Carpenter a lot. I think he's a good fit for the ballpark. He's a pretty good athlete. But I think when you're looking at this, you got to replace Arroyo with Young or Emerson or Ford, would be my guess. And I'm not saying that the Mariners wouldn't do that, but this is, you are giving them a bulk deal. The problem with the bulk is that it's all, years away from the big leagues. Right. So for a team like the Tigers, who are kind of fringe contenders right now in the AL Central, they're probably going to be wanting immediate impact, like right now, or guys who can help us next year. And just these guys have basically no shot of doing that. So they're good prospects. Bundling them up instead of, giving away like a top 5 guy. I know that's something that a lot of Mariner fans would like to do just because they're further away. But you have to think about the other team too. They are not going to be as interested in these guys as they are on Cole Young, Harry Ford, and Ty Locklear. They're just not, because those guys are likely to make their debuts at some point next year, and heck, maybe even at some point this year. So, I don't think the Tigers are in a position where they're going to value guys with maybe a little bit higher upside, but they're 4 or 5 years away. I think a team like Oakland might value that type of bulk for maybe one of their guys, but I don't think Detroit's going to do that. I don't think they'll do it for Carpenter. I have a hard time imagining you get Carpenter without Emerson, and probably, like Laz, maybe even like it's going to be very expensive to get Kerry Carpenter. But I like the outside the box thinking.
Yeah, no, I like the idea, and I like that you're trying to circumvent and giving up high-end talent. I appreciate the effort here, but yeah, I think they're going to want Emerson, they're going to want Young, they're going to want Ford, they're going to want one of those guys at least for Carpenter. And also at that point, you could probably also get like Will Vest in the deal, or Andrew Chafin, someone like that in the deal to help out your bullpen a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Tigers have pitching, but they very well might just go, oh, Kerry Carpenter. If you're not starting your conversation with Bryce Miller or Brian Wu, we're not listening to this conversation.
It's possible.
So, yeah, like I know the Tigers have pretty good pitching, but you can never have enough. And, oh, no, we have 5 like really good starters now. I guess we can't trade one, even though we have more coming in the system. Right. So, yeah, I have a hard time imagining you're getting Carpenter without giving up Miller, Wu, or Emerson would be my guess. Colt, Emerson. I think one of those 3 would have to be in a deal to get Kerry Carpenter, but I would love to be wrong.
Yeah, I'll go 40 on this.
Yeah. I like the process. I think when you look at it from the Tigers side of things, it falls apart really quickly.
Andy has a deal here with the Tigers as well. It's a simple 1-for-1. Mark Canha for Ben Williamson. I don't think it would even cost this much, but I think it's fine.
Yeah.
If they traded Ben Williamson for Mark Canha tomorrow, okay.
Sure. I'm not sure what Canha's doing this year. I assume he's just been kind of he's been Mark Canha above average self, like 110 WRC plus, like 100 to 110, somewhere in that range.
I'll give you his decent numbers defense here in a second. Yeah, actually, he's having an even better year than that. 247, 358, 401, 120 WRC plus.
Yeah, so not a ton of power, but hits for a decent average, draws walks, can play.
He's
all
Mark
3
Canha.
outfield spots. Yeah, I mean, we know who Mark Canha is at this point. A little bit of pop, not a ton. Weird dude, but you only need him for a couple months, so doesn't matter. I think Ty and I have been pounding the table for Mark Canha for like 3 years now.
He's such a Jerry player. He's such a Jerry and Justin player. Like, I'm so surprised that he hasn't been a Mariner yet.
Yeah. So I don't think it would actually take Williamson. I remember what he went for last year. It was like the equivalent of like Axel Sanchez. So I don't think it would take Williamson, but I like the Canha idea. I think he is a bat who fits. He can play 3 outfield spots. He can play some first base. He can DH. He's more of like a number 6 hitter, which is fine. You need that. If it was Williamson, then fine. I mean, to me, that'd be a little bit like a hunt for Bauman, just in the sense that you're like, whoa, that seems like a lot for that guy. But at the end of the day, it's, a minor leaguer for somebody who could help you in the major league level. And Canha certainly is more likely to help you than Bauman. So, I think Williamson's a bit much, but it's not like egregious. Like, could I get him for? Well, I mean, I don't see. This is the thing. This is where beauty's in the eye of the beholder and whatnot. Like, I would say, I'll give you Jonathan Clase, and other people would be like, "What? You'd rather trade Clase than Ben Williamson?" Yes. So, other people would disagree with that. But yeah, I think you're in the right range, roughly. Particularly if you want to get him right now. Like, if you don't want to wait till July, then Williamson is kind of the type of guy that might be good enough to kind of force the Tigers' hands, but they're still kind of in it right now. So they're unlikely to trade anybody until July anyways. But yeah, if this trade came across the ticker, I'd be like, okay, yeah, solid. So I'll give it a 50. I think it's a slight overpay, but it's solid.
55.
Okay.
Next trade here from Xander. Mariners receive Connor Joe and Brian Reynolds from the Pirates for Harry Ford and Emerson Hancock.
So Connor Joe is a favorite of Ty. He also was like off to an insane start. Last I saw, he had like a 170 WRC plus or 150, something insane, right? I don't know if he's kept that up or not. The dude's 32, and so I'm not willing to pretend that he's all of a sudden one of the best hitters in baseball. Like, I think we can clearly say that's a hot streak, and he's going to come back down to earth pretty quick. Like,
he's been a very streaky hitter in general in his career.
Right. Right. I don't think he's like your ideal everyday type of bat either. So I think he's more of kind of a platoon, not a strict platoon, but mostly you want him facing lefties, which could work. But you have Haniger, and unfortunately, they're going to roll with Haniger for a while. Reynolds is obviously a guy that we've spent a lot of time talking about. He's not that guy. Like he's still a good player, but
Mhm.
he's not that guy. He is. What's really weird is they moved him from center field to the corner, and his defense immediately went off a cliff. Like he's a bad defender now in the outfield, but he's a switch hitter. He still has hits for some power. Still draw walks. Makes enough contact. He's still a good player. I don't want to sit here and pretend like he's not a good player, but he's not the guy that you thought he was. 2 years ago. Like he's never going to be a 6-win player again. He's just a 3-win player. He's pretty reasonable contract, but he is making some money now. And I think he's got 7 years left. So you'd be paying him until age 35, 36. That is going to factor into things here. So it's an interesting deal. Harry Ford for Brian Reynolds, like it's the crux of the deal. That might be enough based on where Reynolds is right now in his career. So I don't know. It's interesting. I can kind of go either way on this one. You, I just I don't want to get stuck paying for 2020. What 2021 was it? Brian Reynolds, where he was a 6-1 player. Don't really want to get stuck paying for that guy when right now he's really closer to just like Alex Verdugo.
Part of me feels like this won't be enough for the Pirates.
Yeah, possible.
But I don't really want to hitch my wagon to all those years for Reynolds. Because he's like a solid player, like you said, but I can see the decline coming. And I could see that getting really ugly. Only a couple of years into the contract.
Yeah, and the Pirates aren't a team that's going to eat money, right? Like they're not going to.
That just seems that Brian Reynolds seems like a landmine. So I think I'm out on Brian Reynolds.
It's a landmine, like somewhere down the road, but you're going to step on it eventually.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of how many good years do you get out of him before he goes off. And the problem is right now is that his power this year has gone way down. Like he went from 572 to 461 to 460, and this year he's at 411.
Yeah.
So again, still a pretty solid player. He's only 29, but you're paying him until he's 35 years old.
Yeah.
And I think there's a good chance the last 3 years of that deal are going to be not debilitating. Again, he's not making $20 million a year even. So,
but for the Mariners,
yeah, unfortunately,
yeah.
I'm fine if they pay this, but I don't want to pay much more than this. And even this deal by itself, I'm like, beggars can't be choosers. But it's like, okay, what's Randy Arozarena going to cost me then? You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And Randy is not even having that good of a year, but I'd still rather have him. And I think actually Randy's older than Brian Reynolds, but I'd still rather have Randy than Reynolds. But if this is the deal they decide to make, I'm not upset about it. It's just like this is probably the max like I'm willing to pay. Like to me, I would like the Pirates to take that deal that we talked about for Kerry Carpenter, where it's like, hey, you want Ty Pete, you want Michael Arroyo, you want these guys who are 3 years away. That's the type of guy I would target with kind of a bulk, still upside package, but mostly bulk package instead of going like one big headliner for Reynolds.
Putting the trade in a vacuum, I'd say 45, maybe a 50, but my personal feelings, like I'm just out. No number, just I'm out on Brian Reynolds, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. Did you give it a grade? Can't remember.
It's like a 45, 50. Like it's fine. It's not that I'd be like jacked for, but I don't care about Hancock either, as you guys all know by now. So, yeah, like if they made that deal, wouldn't be super upset. Wouldn't immediately just like, oh, that's a great deal, blah blah blah. So it's a 50. Like it's fine. It's totally fine. But for me, it's a tad bit of an overpay. But sometimes you have to overpay to get the guy that you want. and we know Jerry circles back. So
thank you, everyone, for your trades. We got a couple more on the way in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Stitch Fix. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what I get with Stitch Fix. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work just for you. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want, no subscription required, and they send 5 just for me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works and send back the rest, and if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB. Must redeem within 7 days of sign up. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Once again, you can catch the M's and the Angels tonight and across the weekend on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. All you have to do to find that is search the word Mariners. Let's get back into your trades here on Fan Fiction Friday. Udonis Haslem has a deal with the Giants. Ryan Walker, favorite of Colby's, and Lamont Wade Jr., favorite of both of ours, for Michael Arroyo, Emerson Hancock, and Cade Marlowe.
Yeah, I don't think this is enough. Like, I don't think it's really close either. Ryan Walker is really good. He's having another really good season. And Lamont Wade, you know, he's a good player, certainly. So you get him for a year and a couple months, like, he's a good, solid player. I think you're going to have to, I don't think for those two guys, you'll have to give up Ford, Young, Emerson, Bellman, maybe Laz, but I feel like this is a guy who, since you're not going to have these two guys together, you're not going to give up one of those guys. You kind of have to give up 2 of the next group. So I think it's Arroyo, and then I think it's somebody who's close. So that would be probably Locklear. So I think if you go like Arroyo, Locklear, and then maybe somebody like Dominic Canzone would probably be of interest.
Yeah, I was gonna say, doesn't this feel like a good spot for Canzone? Because the Giants are so weird, and they just they refuse to rebuild.
Yeah, so a player who's already got major league seasoning has had some level of success in the big leagues. People should watch for Canzone and Luke Raley. Both of those guys have, well, Raley's got 4 years, Canzone has 6. So they have plenty of club control. They're both, Canzone in particular is younger. Raley has more of a track record, but they're both lefties. They're, both playable. They're not DH only types. And so both of those guys are going to carry some weight in trade discussions. The Mariners obviously have to be careful, because if you trade one of your better bats to get a bat, you're still a bat short, right? So, and obviously Canzone has to hit with a little more consistency than he has so far, and so does Raley, for them to really be super valuable in a trade. But I feel like the Giants are one of those teams that probably would value a Canzone in this deal. And maybe if you include Canzone, instead of it being, Locklear and like Arroyo, or maybe instead we'll give you Canzone and Ty Pete and Carlos Vargas, and maybe that carries the day. So I would trade Canzone for a year and 2 months of Lamont Wade right now. I think Ryan Walker's the secret expensive player here, and I think his inclusion is what's going to make you have to give up one of those top 100-ish talented guys that you have in your system. Baseball America says you have 7 or 8. I don't know if you have that many, but also I don't really care. It's going to be like a Locklear, or it's going to be a.
I hope the rest of the league feels that way.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be absolutely great. But this also could be one of those cases. I feel like the Giants are going to want somebody that they could wave in front of their fan base and be like, look, this guy, he's got upside and he's going to help us for the next few years. And that's why I feel like Canzone could actually be a really good, trade chip, particularly with a team like San Francisco, because they're weird and they refuse to do the logical thing pretty much always. So yeah, I think Canzone probably in this deal really pushes it over the top. So pretty creative idea. One new name, and then a name that I'm pretty sure we'll get quite a few Lamont Wade trades over the next 6 weeks or so. So I don't. I'd say 40. I don't think you're there yet, but I like the idea in general.
40. Seattle sports fan, this is our last trade of the day. Mariners get Isaac Paredes and Jason Adam, and the Rays get Cole Young, Luis Suisbel, Tyler Guff, Michael Arroyo, and Brody Hopkins. It's a lot of bulk, and like there is a top prospect in here in Young, and obviously Arroyo is well regarded as well, but I think it's missing some high-end talent here for Paredes, who still has multiple years of club control. He's having an insane year right now at the plate. I don't think it's enough for the Rays.
No, I think to get this package, you're giving up 2 of your top 3 prospects. And, do you want to give up Emerson, Ford, and Young, 2 of those guys? Maybe. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. Paredes has got plenty of club control left. But are the Mariners going to want to do that? I don't know. And honestly, if I'm the Rays, like I'm not trading Paredes without Wu or Miller because I really need starting pitching. Right. And at that point, are the Mariners in? Well, if they can go get a veteran starting pitcher from someone else, sure. But it doesn't feel like that's something they're going to want to do. So Paredes is just a really tough ask. I really like the idea. And if I can get him for just prospects, I'm in on pretty much anything close to reasonable. Like would I trade Ford and Young for Paredes? Yeah, probably. It would hurt, but yeah, I'd probably do that. So
this is another team that makes some sense for Canzone, by the way.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Luke Raley now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Yeah. Could make sense for Canzone. This could be a Emerson Hancock. Like, hey, we think we can tweak this here, and we can get a number 4 starter out of them. So I do like the Hopkins. Like, I do like the bulk part of this, but you're missing at least a co-headliner in this deal, at least one, and then probably one probably not like Ty France.
If they
probably Canzone.
If they included Savali or Little, whatever it is, would you include Wu or Miller?
I mean, it depends on what the rest of the package is. Like, if they're adding Savali, am I adding Wu or Miller to like Ford and Young? No. I don't
essentially
know.
One of those guys replaces one of the big 3.
I'd be more on board with it. It just at that point, Savali's making a little bit of money, and obviously we know that becomes a factor.
He's also not having a good year right now.
Yeah, so I'd be a little bit more on board with it, but I think if I'm including one of my 5 starters in a trade this summer, I'm not giving up a top prospect to go with him. I just don't see a guy out there who's worth it. And Paredes does have some of his own some of his own flaws that you got to try and work around. So I think Tampa will. I think for specifically Paredes, Tampa is going to say, "Give me Miller or Wu." And when the Mariners say no, I think that's the end of the conversation. Because they don't need to trade Paredes. This isn't one of those cases where Paredes is getting expensive and we should trade him now. No, they trade Paredes. It's going to be because they got exactly what they wanted for him. Yeah. This is why I keep talking about guys like a Rosarena and even like Yandy Diaz as guys who are more likely to be traded because they are making a bit of money and they're going to make even more money next year. And the Rays, they rarely pay guys into their final year of arbitration or the final year of their contract. So that's why. Paredes is just a little bit more difficult to grade, but yeah, I think you're at least a co-headliner short here. And then even after you add a co-headliner, I think you might be somebody like a Dom Canzone short of pushing the steal across the finish line. So I think you got more, I think you got a bigger gap to cover than you're going to be comfortable covering, if that makes sense. So I'd say 35, 40.
Yeah. I was going to say 35 on this one. All right, that is going to do it for our show. But before we get out of here, a reminder that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Dan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Ty Dan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day and a beautiful baseball weekend, and we'll see you next time. Peace.